Okay, we are live on YouTube. The meeting is yours, Mr. Chairman. Let me know if you need anything.
Thank you. Like to call to order the Lyon Township Downtown Development Authority meeting, regular meeting on Tuesday, January 12th, 2021 at 7 p.m. exactly. And if we could have a pledge of allegiance to the flag, and if we could have a flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carissa, would you like to recite the mission statement, please?
Unmute.
Oh. Carissa?
Sorry.
Yep.
Just finding it. The mission of the Lyon Township DDA is to assist public and private development efforts to stimulate residential, commercial, and industrial growth and create a vibrant community where people live, work, and play.
Thank you. Rose, could we do a roll call? And when you speak your name, please announce the city that you're in.
Okay, Carissa,
Lyon Township.
John Dolan is not here, I presume. Jason,
Yes, Davisburg.
Robert Heydrich, Tim Miner, Adorno,
Northville.
Troy,
New Hudson.
Paula, and Mark Zerlag, and I presume they are not here. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just FYI, it didn't get any notification other than John Dolan saying he might not be able to, but I haven't heard from Paula or Mark, so they might still be joining us.
Okay.
Can we get an approval of the consent agenda or any questions about it?
No.
I have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you guys have a quorum right now?
That's what I'm wondering. Do we?
Do we have, let's see, we got one?
No.
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 Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
That was good question. So we really can't approve the consent agenda. And we can't approve the agenda. I guess I'll call for announcements and communications. Any? I would like to thank Adorno and Paula and Mark for helping us Saturday tear down the holiday decorations at the church. And Tina, of course. Brian, is there anybody, there's nobody on from the public?
No callers at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Leslie, we'll move on to 9A for unfinished business. Leslie, you want to?
Yes, I'll give the background and then we'll see if any additional board members join and we can discuss the options, okay?
Sure.
So for quite some time, we have been discussing the new Hudson drain and the floodplain. And many of you have served for a long time and you're familiar with the situation, but I want to give some background, especially for Carissa and if Paula joins, so you know the history of what happened. In 2017, we were authorized by the DDA to design the ring road. And if possible, I'd like to share my screen. Is that okay, Brian?
Yes.
Thank you. I just have to find the right map.
At the bottom of the window, there should be a green share screen button.
Okay, great. Okay, that is, I want to show you okay. So this is the sketch of the ring road that was with our proposal to the DDA in June of 2017. And this is the route. This is can you see the eastern roundabout? This is at Grand River. This is the Rorschach parcel here. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So this is the eastern part of the segment of road. This loop would complete, or this section of the ring road would complete the entire ring road. To the west is Milford Road, and this is south of Grand River. So this is the scope of the design project back in 2017. And we started design immediately. We surveyed this area, the future right-of-way area. We did a tree inventory, and we were approximately 45% into the design when the design stopped. When we initially started the design, this is another important map that I want to share. This is the floodplain map that we were under the assumption that this floodplain area is correct. And this blue line here, these blue dots, pretty much for the majority of the road, it was contained within the new Hudson drain. So to give you that frame of reference, this again is the Rorschach parcel here. And the road this is where the roundabout is now approximately. So the road was going to come down here and it's going to meander through the parcel. So we were anticipating crossing the new Hudson drain. We knew that we would have to have wetland permits and floodplain permits for that section. But what happened is during the design of this, Walbridge was also working on the development plans for some of their parcels. And Walbridge's parcel, I think everybody's probably familiar with that, especially Adorno. But to the east of this area, the eastern edge of this map here, I don't know if you can really see my cursor on this, but let me switch to the other one.
You see it.
You can kind of see it?
I saw your cursor.
I'll go to okay, here we go. So this is to the south of this area is all owned by Walbridge, and then the vacant land to the east, all the way to South Hill Road, and even further east of South Hill, Walbridge owns and is currently working on their first development project. So while Walbridge was going through the planning phases of their project, their engineer, which is Atwell, did an analysis of the new Hudson drain, and I'm going to bring up their map. So this is the similar area that we were just looking at. This is the Rorschach property right here and the roundabout. So you may recall this is the center line of the new Hudson drain on that established floodplain map that was adopted by FEMA. All of the floodplain, was in that drain. Well, Atwell performed an analysis, which is called a HEC-RAS model. That's just the name of it. It's a hydraulic model that you put certain inputs, like you would at South Hill, for example, you would say, this is the amount of flow during a 100-year event, a 100-year rain event that we would anticipate. And you put that at certain points in the model and you run the computer program. And I'm simplifying it significantly, but that is in effect what you do. At the same time, you also put your drain size into the model, and it's supposed to simulate what would happen during a 100-year event. Well, this is the map that was generated from that computer analysis. And this dark dashed line here, which goes all the way up to Grand River, is the 100-year floodplain. So when we received this and became aware of it at, I think we were meeting at the Drain Commission office at the time, we said, this is going to be a major problem. We're never going to get the permit to fill in the floodplain that we need to build the road, and without doing a major compensating cut or fixing the issue that's causing the floodplain. And in this case, we're pretty confident it's the fact that the new Hudson drain has never been cleaned out, and there's so many culverts, many of them are undersized and at incorrect elevations. The other thing is the county drains were never designed for a 100-year event. Typically, they're designed for a 10-year event. But going back, this drain was originally developed about 100 years ago, and there's been very little maintenance done. Actually, the township has done the only maintenance on it that I'm aware of a few years ago. So since that time, it was, I want to say it was, I don't want to give an exact date, but it was in 2018 when we came back to the DDA and we said, this is the big problem. We should stop design work right now until this is evaluated and a decision is made on how to proceed. So we've been talking about this internally for a long time. And the reason it's so complex is the road project alone was very expensive. And then you add in dealing with the drain, you're adding millions of dollars onto the project. And what is the best way to finance this? You have thousands of property owners that are in the legal drainage district where their properties flow to the new Hudson drain. One option would be to assess those property owners, establish a special assessment district, and the costs are shared amongst everybody. But those include many residents who have lived in their homes for a long time. So it's a very complicated situation. And we even talked the last few months about proceeding with the design and replacement of the Milford Road culvert, which is part of the issue. That culvert was built too high, and that's causing part of this problem. But just replacing that alone doesn't significantly modify the map that's in front of you based on our conversations with Atwell and some of the analysis that they have done. So after looking at those costs the last few months, we're scratching our heads and saying, okay, well, maybe we should go back to the drawing board, or maybe we should just apply for the floodplain permit based on the FEMA map that is technically still the adopted floodplain. Now, my opinion is we can certainly do that, and we could submit it, and we could see if Eagle issues the permit. And there's a proposal in your packet tonight that would have that scope. The alternative to that is we could request a pre-application meeting with Eagle. There might be some, Eagle is the state agency that would review a floodplain permit. It would be much less expensive, even if you had to pay for the pre-application meeting, which is standard. It's still going to be maybe, if I had to ballpark, I would say less than $2,000 compared to a proposal that's $17,000. The issue that I have with presenting, submitting a permit directly to Eagle is that I am confident, as are my engineers that work for me, that Eagle will come back and say a HEC-RAS model is required for this drain. Well, if they do that, based on Atwell's study, let's go back to the other picture. They will be aware that this is what the floodplain is. And they would not issue a permit to fill the road or fill the floodplain for the road unless you have what's called a compensating cut. The way it works with floodplains is if you picture a bowl and you want to fill the bowl so you can plant a tree in it, they make you dig a bowl somewhere else in the same vicinity, if that makes sense. So the amount of dirt you put in for the road, you have to take out somewhere else. The township doesn't have the available land east of Milford Road. So it's, again, very complex, and I'm trying to simplify it and keep it a Cliff Notes version of all of the events that have taken place in the last couple of years. But it is important, if the ring road is to ever be constructed, to do one of those things, either to apply for the permit based on the FEMA map and see what happens. Or we can request a pre-application meeting, ask them for their exact requirements. If they bring up the HEC-RAS model at that time, then you know. So that's a very quick summary. And if I skipped over anything, please ask me if there's any details I may have missed. The time that it takes to put these applications together, we've estimated just for the permit alone is in our proposal, we proposed a not to exceed price of $17,700. We would bill hourly. If we were bidding that lump sum, that would be the same price. That we think that's what it's going to take. You have to do quite a bit of CAD work on these permits. Every time, it's called cross sections in CAD that you have to develop. And they're very extensive permit applications on purpose because the state wants to see exactly what you're doing, where you're filling, especially floodplains and wetlands. It's sensitive to the state of Michigan. And I can respect that, but it is costly. So this is, I guess, the discussion on which way does the township want to proceed. Tina, did I summarize everything?
Yeah. Mhm.
Leslie, I have a question. So that's going with taking the ring road that route, correct?
Yes.
Okay, what if the ring road goes a different route? Maybe we go farther south on Milford Road. Does that change it at all or not really?
Well, the plans are not, if that was something that you wanted to do, actually, I don't think it really does, other than there would be more of a redesign cost because that's not the route that has been followed.
Sure.
At this point. And so, Mark, I was just giving a summary of the situation with the floodplain and
This dog is barking.
where we're at right now. There are a couple of options for the DDA. We could apply for the floodplain permit as the road is laid out right now based on the FEMA map and see what happens, see if the state of Michigan would issue that permit. I am not confident they would. I think they will come back and require a HEC-RAS model. If they do that, then the work done on that permit application really is, there's no benefit to that work. It would have to be redone.
And how much is a permit application?
Well, our fee to develop the package is $17,700.
So more or less, you have to do that entire cost in order to have them come back and say, we need the HEC-RAS model?
If we were not going to do a pre-application meeting, if we just wanted to submit the permit and roll the dice, that's what it would cost.
Gotcha.
The alternative I'm bringing up tonight is maybe it's a good idea to have a pre-application meeting and ask Eagle exactly what they would require. If they bring up HEC-RAS model at that time, at least you would know.
Which has already been, but that's already been done by Atwell Hicks.
Yes, but the floodplain has not been submitted to FEMA for adoption or the state of Michigan for adoption that I'm aware of.
How does that work then, Leslie? Like, because does Eagle look at FEMA or do they look at whatever the most recent engineering model?
They could look at all of it. And they also look at the tributary area. And here's the critical thing. If your tributary area is more than 2 square miles, that's what triggers the study. And it is. That's why we have said for the last couple of years that we do not feel you're going to get a permit for this. It's just such a complex issue though, because of the drain, what it's necessary. This is a tough one even for me giving you a proposal because I'm not confident that we are going to get the permit.
But we talked about how we're kind of stuck right now. So we're not moving forward and we need to move forward.
Yes,
So
I
at our
agree.
last meeting, there was discussion about applying for this permit and then having a formal response back from Eagle.
That's the benefit.
Right. So if we do a pre-app meeting, then they're going to tell us what it is that we need to do, which we kind of know what we need to do. But by having some type of a formal response back from an application that says, here's your application, but these are all the things that we need, then perhaps that's when we go back to our MEDC partners, for instance, and say, we're trying to move forward with this. We applied for an application through Eagle. Eagle said, this is what we need. We're struggling with some of these expenses or these costs. Can you help? Because it has a direct impact on development in our community. And it could be that because we don't have more of a more formal type of
Exactly.
approach to this is why we were only issued the design for the culvert from the MEDC, because
Right.
they weren't getting a full understanding of something that wasn't just coming from Lyon Township. It's actually coming from another state government unit that said, in order to move forward, you need these following things.
Exactly. And even if we have a pre-application meeting and I ask Eagle, I'm certainly not going to ask them, is a HEC-RAS model stud required? Because they'll say yes. If I said, what is the complete list? And they don't list HEC-RAS model, then we do the permit application. They can still come back and say, you have to submit the model. So this is the state agency that is, I can predict certain things based on experience, like the 2 square miles, I would expect them to require the model. But you never really know until you submit what they're going to come back with. Now, the other part of this, the proposal for the permit application is $17,000, but we stopped our plans kind of right in the middle of design. We would have some additional work to get them to the point where we could submit. We did receive Drain Commission comments. To date, we've billed 47% of that contract. So I do want you to understand there would be costs on that original authorization as well on the plan set, in addition to the floodplain/wetland permit application.
So if we submit the permit application, they come back and say that the model needs to be performed. It's already, are we able to use the Elwell Hicks model as a model that's to show them that this has been done?
Atwell Hicks gave us a price of $14,000 to update their model and to be on the, I guess, the submitting team. We do not run HEC-RAS models. We've gone through the training, but we're not experts in it. And so
Right.
Atwell's already done the work. I've already asked them if they could be part of our team, and they said they would, but that would be their cost.
So that adds another 14,000. So, but that still doesn't solve the problem that we already know that we're in a floodplain that needs to be resolved.
Correct.
So we're going to spend upwards of $30,000 for them for us to pretty much get back to where we're at right now.
Maybe. Yes.
Or we just do the pre-application meeting and they come back and say, you need to do this, this, and this.
We could do that. We could ask them for feedback in writing or record the meeting or have some kind of record of it. I mean, right now everything's virtual, so it is pretty easy to record meetings.
Right. Is there a need for having specific documentation for other purposes?
I don't think so.
And more from a legal standpoint?
It'd probably be good to have that official record from the state that we've gotten their feedback and these are the requirements.
And then if,
I'm sorry.
if they somehow tell us that we don't have to do the HEC-RAS model, we proceed with the road. Is there issues down the road with a 100-year floodplain that we know is there, but we proceeded with installing it anyways?
Well, I think your biggest risk is your road might flood for a few hours or a day, depending on the finished elevation of the road. You know, the road elevation is going to vary. And if you're lower than that floodplain, the water is going to go where it's going to go. It's going to go the lowest elevation.
But does that push the water onto other people's property and have issues with other people coming after us?
That's more complicated because I want to go back to the Atwell map while we talk about this. So if we built the road in this area, and one thing I think that is difficult, even for me to wrap my head around it, and we do all kinds of modeling and engineering projections. I think one thing that's difficult in this case is that I've never seen it flood like this. I've never heard about flooding like this to this level. So it's very hard to wrap your head around it, but the model has certain inputs that Eagle will even review the flow. And if they don't agree with you, you have to make the revisions. So when Atwell modeled this, keep in mind, all of Walbridge's property right now is vacant.
Right.
There's no hard surface. There will be some soon because there's some sites that are under construction, but you're changing it from let's say 200 acres that were taking rainwater and absorbing it as a farm field. Now
Right.
you're building industrial buildings, parking lots, roads, a detention basins that's supposed to simulate it, but it really doesn't exactly. You know, how could it? You're turning it into a point discharge instead of this massive amount of land that could absorb it. So the study takes into account all of Walbridge being developed, South Hill Road being paved. There's sections of South Hill Road that can't even get to the new Hudson drain because it's gravel and it floods.
So more or less, it's a worst case scenario when all the property's developed and there's a bunch of pavement and the water has nowhere to go. It's all going to run through the drain and then it's going to flood all of that.
Exactly. That's the model. So this is hard for me to wrap my head around too, though, because I have never seen the new Hudson drain above its banks. And
No.
we get every single flooding complaint that comes to the township where we hear about it. We look at it. There was about a year and a half ago, I think we had 50 complaints in the June that wouldn't stop raining. So this wasn't any of them. None from here.
So this model what you're showing takes into account more than just the road being developed.
Of course, yes, it's everything.
But shouldn't they look at it from, okay, well, what's the direct impact with just the road, not what's going to occur 30 years from now?
That's not how they look at it.
Why?
It's more theoretical to look at ultimate development, the drain.
What if, because I know when we had talked before offline, it was if we could show, because you mentioned compensating cuts. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
And we talked about if we were just looking at this project and they were saying, you're going to have to offset then the floodplain. Could
That's
we
true.
maybe just do sidewalks on one side of the road and then have some type of ditching or some type of containment that we could put along the other side of the road that we could help to compensate for that? Because I think that's a very good point that you made, Jason, is as we try to wrap our head around this, I mean, if it was just a Walbridge project, we're just looking at the Walbridge project and they were able to do their compensating cuts for just that project, but we didn't have to change the drain. So how is it that like the road project isn't looked at in the same way if we can make our compensating cuts in order to
You're right, Tina. If you have the land to do it and we could do that. It's just, what do we do first?
What if Walbridge indicated, said, you know what, we're going to keep it farmland. We're not going to ever develop it.
Great.
Don't say that.
Well, no, I'm just, but it's, there's, it's a theoretical. I know they're trying to, market it, but
the flows that Atwell put in are flows, because Atwell did this model, the flows that Atwell applied for and received a wetland/floodplain permit for the state of Michigan for the work being done in the industrial park and the large spec building,
right,
corner of South Hill and Grand River. So because Walbridge owns the land, they made the decision to move forward with their project and do the clean out so that the floodplain stayed within the banks, but they had the availability to do that.
Right.
With that being such a recent project, I'm going to assume Eagle would maybe remember that if we submit something. So, but I completely agree with Tina. The project has to move forward one way or another if it's still a priority for the DDA, and I think it is based on our meetings and discussion. It's still in the CIP. It's just what's the best way forward.
So the drawing we're looking at right now is done by Atwell Hicks, but it takes into account all of Walbridge's property being developed.
The whole tributary area, including Walbridge.
And then does it account for our road as well?
The road doesn't really matter right now.
No, okay.
This is where, if there was the road matters with, if I show the road in this floodplain, there's significantly more floodplain, meaning we're filling that much more, meaning your compensating cut gets that much bigger to build it.
So if we were to contract with Atwell Hicks and tell them we just want to do one for the road, would it look different?
No.
Okay.
Leslie, I have a question about the application. So
Okay.
we're gonna spend 17,000 for the application, let's say, okay? An application gets denied. Then we go back with another application. How, I mean, is it another 17,000 or how is that affected?
It will definitely be affected because everything would have to get revised. Because if we went in with the application right now, it would be based on this map. So your floodplain area, everything is different. So I'm not sure how much of it would be reusable. It would definitely take some work.
How many times could they deny an application? I mean, I know they could deny as many as they want, but how many times do we apply?
Well, the issue is if we apply for the permit based on this map and they say, no, we're rejecting this, you need to submit a model, shame on you or whatever they'll say, then the next step would be coming back to the DDA and saying, okay, well, they're requiring a model. We work with Atwell and Atwell says, well, here you go. This is the map. Here's the model. I mean, I know they have to do some additional work, but
Sure.
Then we show this as part of the application. Now it comes back to the question of what are you going to do with the drain? I don't know if we could build the road even with compensating cut, like the idea of the ditch on the one side. I won't know that until we really get into the details on the plans, because once this became, like I said, we kind of just stopped. So it could be an option, but it might be such a massive amount of fill that a ditch on one side of the road isn't enough.
Well, the ditch on the side of the road, is that just going to take the water anywhere, or is it just going to let it to precipitate back into the ground?
It would tie into the drain so that you're just building a larger detention area, like an inline detention.
Okay, so it's almost like a secondary drain.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that was one idea that when we were discussing this administratively, that was suggested.
Right, a bypass drain almost.
Yeah, kind of. Just an open ditch section to count as your compensating cut. I just don't know if it would be enough, if there'd be enough room based on this map without touching the drain. That's the whole tricky thing. Like, can we build a road without improving the drain? I don't know yet.
How many times have you dealt with Ingle?
Eagle?
Ingle, sorry.
Well, we have, regarding floodplain and wetland permitting.
Yeah, more or less like, all right, so you've dealt with them 10 times, 6 out of 10 times they tell you to come back and give me a model. Is that?
Well, we just did the 11-mile park where we applied for the wetland and floodplain permit, and they came back and said we need a model.
So it's pretty high percentage that they're going to come back and say we need it.
I think it's extremely high percentage.
So it seems kind of pointless to not use the information we have and the knowledge that you have and tackle it that way. Like just to spend money to say we submitted a permit seems kind of a waste of money.
That's my concern. It's just not
I agree with
something
that.
I feel good about, to be honest with you.
Yeah, what do you think, Adorno? You're more involved in this than anybody.
Yeah, you're spinning your wheels just to say you did it, but it gets you no further in the game at all. It's a cat and mouse game almost. It's just, you know what they're going to say. I mean, unless they're totally asleep at the switch, which I've never in 30 years have found them to be asleep at the switch.
They're not. I mean, I just think it's very unlikely, especially the fact Walbridge just submitted their permit. We've had meetings with Eagle a couple of years ago when we were talking about it. I don't know if they remember. I mean, they look at a lot of them. It just, it gets us an answer, but a pre-application probably gets you the same answer.
So it falls back onto how do we improve the drainage so that we can proceed with a plan that addresses what we know, which is the model that's shown in front of us.
Right. And Tina, I mean, what are your thoughts about a pre-application meeting, if that's?
Well, we do them here at the township. I mean, pre-application meetings are a way to reduce cost, ensure timeframes. You get to answer all the questions that you have and hopefully get all the answers back. So, I'm not opposed to doing a pre-application meeting. It's,
Can't hurt.
yeah, I mean, it's just, to your point, Jason, it is an expensive application. So in a process, and we want to make sure that what we're submitting is accurate and what they're going to look for. It's just, what's frustrating with Eagle is, there really isn't any set guidelines. They really do take these projects one at a time. And that's how they're evaluating that.
They are, because if the tributary was less than 2 square miles, they would not require it. That's the issue here. So you have more than, that's where I think they're going to require it.
And maybe it's in that meeting too, that we make the argument, can you look at this application as a road project alone?
Exactly.
And not overall, and maybe they would consider that. So, yeah, I think it's something that we should pursue. I just think it's very important. I mean, this is a project that's on the capital improvement list for the township. It's definitely on our top priority list for the DDA. And we really need to get some momentum going on it.
I agree. And one of these approaches I think is definitely the way to go, but from a cost perspective, I would feel better about doing the pre-application meeting. I certainly wouldn't want the township to spend monies unnecessarily on documents that couldn't even really be reused.
What's the earliest you think you could get a pre-application meeting?
We have to request it online, so I'm not sure what their time frame is. I would hope within a month.
What's everybody think? Mark?
I think a pre-app is the way to go. I think if nothing else, we should be able to get some questions answered that might help guide us, to the right path.
Carissa?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like maybe I'm not familiar with it, but maybe we're not asking the question of them when we go. Are you going to require this? Is there a reason? Do we not want to bring it to light? But then you said that they could say, you're all set to go. And then they can come back and say, oh, wait, we want this.
Yeah, I mean, it probably is one of those things. Well, if they don't say it's required, that I'm just gonna have to ask them, for one, that I have a record of it, and for two, that we know, like, just tell us if this is gonna be a requirement. And maybe we can try to make the argument that this is for a road project only. This isn't for anything else, so.
Well, with Mark on, we have a quorum now. I mean, do we want to pursue approving funds for a pre-application meeting?
Is there a cost involved for a pre-app meeting, Leslie?
I think there is, let me.
I thought you mentioned like probably a couple thousand or something.
That's what I thought. I mean, if you could approve not to exceed of 3,000, I think that would be okay. And if, I'll have to verify with my project manager.
And if it's more than that, you would just cover it?
It depends how much more than that, but I'll be in touch with you.
We wouldn't expect you to.
So if it's if you're comfortable making that recommendation, then I think we could get it done for that. I just have to verify it with my project manager. I just don't remember what their fees are offhand.
It's funny, I pulled it up real quick, but it's a 2015 one, and it actually talks about the pre-application meeting fee based on the acreage.
So
It's a per
I think
acre.
sometimes they can be kind of expensive, but I'm not sure if they'll waive that for a government entity or not. Probably not, but
Well, should we make somebody make a motion?
Yeah, I'd make a motion to approve spending no more than $3,000 for a pre-application meeting with Eagle.
I'll support.
Rose, can we get a roll call, please?
Yeah, I just have one question. Mark, are you in Brighton?
I am in Brighton, yes.
Okay.
Oh,
I
Paul's
thought so,
on,
but I
Paul's on also.
Oh,
Pardon
Paul,
me?
too.
And my apologies to everybody for being late.
And Paula, where are you?
I'm in Wild Lake. And yes, I apologize as well for being late. Plus then my computer froze up on me. So hopefully I'll be good for the rest of the duration.
Okay, Mark,
Yes,
Adorno,
Yes.
Troy,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Carissa,
Yes,
and Paula.
Sorry, I thought I answered you. Yes.
Okay, motion carried.
Since we have a quorum, we'll go back and hit a couple of the items that need to be approved. Did everybody have a chance to look at the consent agenda? I'll take that as a yes.
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 Can we get an approval of the consent agenda? And I'm going to abstain because my company is on there.
I don't have the date in front of me, but I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Or please insert the date,
December
Okay.
2020.
December 2020.
December 2020.
And the amount of,
You need it?
I need it, please.
Yeah, I got it. 683116. Is that correct?
Yes.
And who is the second? I'm sorry.
I'll second.
Who is that?
Jason.
Okay, I just saw your lips move. Okay. Okay, Carissa,
yes,
Paula,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Troy. Oh, you
Abstain.
abstained. I'm sorry. Adorno,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes,
motion carried.
okay, can we get an approval of the agenda?
Let's go back to the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda for Tuesday, January 12th.
Second that agenda, that motion.
Okay, Troy,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Adorno,
Yes.
Carissa,
yes,
Yes.
Paula, Mark.
Yes.
Okay. New business, Oakland County Winterization Grant. Tina, I think that's you.
Yep, it is. All right, can you guys see my screen? I just shared it. Should
Yep.
say phase one CPT.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so as you know, Oakland County has been the steward of all of the CARES Act money, stimulus money that was used in order to help our economy during this COVID pandemic. And they have been very transparent on how they have been allocating that money. And they actually have, if you're interested, they have a great web page that really provides an infographic that kind of breaks it all down. Well, as we entered into the holiday season, as you all know, there was the order that went out from the Michigan Department of Health. It was in mid-November, basically giving new rules on how restaurants could operate. And then it was thought that that rule was going to expire at the beginning of December, like December 8th, somewhere around that. And then it was extended through January 15th. So the county, being very keenly aware how much of a stress that would put on our restaurants, decided to take some of the last monies in the CARE Act and dedicate it towards a restaurant relief program. Now, what was really challenging about this is that, you know, once they decided and then went through all the approvals through the county, it basically got to us in a meeting, a Zoom meeting on like the 20th of December. And so there was a pretty rapid request to get us to come back with them with some suggestions on how we wanted to spend that money. And part of the reason why that was so timely is that the CARES Act, you had to allocate and dedicate that money before December 30th. That was when the CARES Act money, if you hadn't spent it at that time, it went back to the federal government. So they were scrambling, and then in turn, they were asking all of the cities and villages and townships in Oakland County to do the same. So with that, I went ahead and contacted our restaurants that were eligible for this particular relief fund and just kind of got their idea on where they were at, because many of them were already putting into place some outdoor seating and they were kind of making that work. We had one restaurant in particular, the Kensington Grill, where the owner said, hey, you know what? I'm just going to shut down temporarily because it's just too much overhead for me to handle during this crisis. And so just trying to get a feed for where people were. We had some of our restaurants had the tents set up. Some were doing the outdoor fireplaces. So with that in mind, and then on top of that, and you'll see here in this phase one where it's explaining this rapid response application. They provided a product spec sheet that basically, I'll show you that in a minute. And when we had to get that back to them, the deadline. And then they also provided us with a copy of a draft restaurant relief interlocal agreement. So what was different with this grant is that instead of the restaurants applying for the grant, it was the local government applying for the grant. And they did it that way for a number of reasons. One, they didn't want the restaurants applying for material that was not permitted by ordinance in the community. And then they also wanted to have a little bit more accountability on who was getting what and how it was going to be allocated, because the county wasn't going to be able to do this. They were really going to have to rely on the local folks like ourselves to execute this. And so with that in mind, it was the township / DDA that was applying for these materials. And we were doing a little bit of a cart before the horse, because they provided us with a draft relief local agreement telling us that the actual final one wouldn't be available until mid-January. So we have an idea of what it is that they would expect from us, which is basically just some accountability that the items that we secured would actually be going to the restaurants and that they would be using them. And we would have some type of agreement on whether they would keep them or if they would return back to the township. In the case of like greenhouses, where we don't permit greenhouses by ordinance, but our ordinances are laxed right now. And so we do allow them right now. But what do you do at the end of all of this? So, there's a lot of trying to figure this out. So internally, administratively, we had some discussions here because we had to act so quickly on how we were going to move forward. So I was a little conservative in this request. So the request went in for 2 greenhouses, 6 heaters, and I think it's up to 12 of these, what are they called? Propane tanks. And then being part of their renewal program, because they're also reimbursing for X amount of turnovers of that propane tank, and also for an electrostatic cleaner, a sanitizer, and the material, like the liquid material that comes with that. So we were allowed to get 2 of those, 1 for each one of the greenhouses. The other caveat is that if you went with the greenhouses and you were going to place them in an area where it wasn't on cement, like in a parking lot, for instance, like if it was at the Draft Horse on their grass, or if it was going to be in the New Hudson Inn and their dirt parking lot, then you also had to provide a platform. So basically a ground deck needed to be created in order to put the greenhouse on top of it. And then it was, well, if you have 2 people and they can dedicate 6 to 8 hours to put together the greenhouse, and you're paying someone to do that, you could expense that off. And then also, if you're going to put it onto the platform and secure it to the platform, now you have a greenhouse that's pretty stable. What do you do with that after all of this? So there were a lot of things that we were having to consider. So that's why I was really conservative in this phase 1 rapid response. And it was really difficult too, because we weren't exactly sure when they partnered with Home Depot. We weren't exactly sure when the product was going to hit. We're in the middle between Christmas and New Year's. Who's available? How can we manage this and organize it? It was pretty much a scramble. But on January 3rd, I think it was, we had a Q&A session to kind of walk us through where we're at and how we need to deploy and execute. So I know that was a lot of information, and I feel like it's just majorly downloaded on you guys, but that's kind of the gist of phase 1 of this initiative. Phase 2, which I'm going to show you, is a little bit different. So phase 2 is looking at completing the interlocal agreement, and then which both the township and the DDA I think should sign. And I ran this by our attorney too. And if we are going to be distributing these greenhouses or igloos or whatever, and we end up having some type of a license agreement with the business too, so they understand that this is like a lease agreement for them. And then we need to figure out what we're going to do when they come back. So with this phase 2, it's a little different. How that works is we can order our own material, or the restaurants can order their materials and they can get reimbursed for that. If we want to order more of the outdoor heaters, we can do that too. They can actually be owned by the DDA, and we would lend them to the restaurants during the winter months. And then maybe we hold on to them then and store them and use them as we see fit. So if we do our Christmas event next or this December, and we decide to close off the streets, and instead of having open fires, we could actually have these heaters available. So as a DDA, they would end up becoming our assets and we could manage them. But in the middle of this crisis, we would be leasing them out. So we were allocated a certain amount of money to work with. And I'm going to show you that, and I'll bounce back to this real quick.
Hey, Tina, what's CVT stand for?
Sorry, that stands for cities, villages, and townships.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. this was the application. You don't need to see the application. Back here. Oh, I can show you this too while I'm at it. So this is the spec sheet for the products. The greenhouse is a Snap and Grow brand. It's an 8x12. It's quite large, and it tells you kind of what's the components are of it. And the important thing about these types of structures, just like the igloos, people often ask, well, how is it that you're bringing the indoors outside and then creating it indoors? Well, the rules are that it has to have airflow. So these have vents in them, and many of the igloos also have some type of a vent at the top, that you only can allow 6 people in. Those 6 people should only be from the same family or pod of people that have been hanging out together for most of this pandemic. And then after each use, the doors have to be open and the electrostatic cleaner needs to be used in order to sanitize it. So one of the questions that I had posed to our restaurant owners is, if we were to get these, would you be committed to keeping them clean, to following the rules? Like, those are all part of the agreement that they would have to sign, is that they would make reservations, they would limit the number of people in there to 6 people. And that's how that program would work. These are the heaters, the propane heaters. And this is the electrostatic cleaner. It's about 1.5 feet, 2 feet long. It's pretty self-contained. And what's different about this is that if you use like a spray bottle to disinfect, you spray and then you're wiping, or maybe you spray and it gets one area really well, but not another. The fire department explained this to me, one of our fire deputies. He said, with this, when you spray it, it also sends out an electronics charge. So it actually adheres to and encompasses the entire surface area. So fire departments have been using this for years because of decontamination procedures. So it's not just your average spray bottle type of approach. It's kind of different. And then of course it comes with this disinfectant solution. So what I had ordered in recap is 2 of these greenhouses, which we have not received delivery on yet because I wanted to run it by everyone at this meeting tonight. We have 6 of these heaters. We can secure more. And we have 2 of these electrostatic cleaners with their refill. And with the propane, separately, the county has contracted with a propane provider who can arrange to make repeat deliveries of the propane tanks. So every heater that's ordered gets a propane tank to start off with. And then they believe that those tanks would last one evening. So they would send more tanks to replace those. And that replenishing system can also be included in our deduction of the amount that's set aside for our particular community. Does anyone have any questions on that? This is the relief program itself. Eligibility, there's 53 communities in Oakland County that can participate. There are some cities and villages and townships that were not eligible to apply. And part of this is because in order to determine what the amount of the grant would be, they looked at specific data, a full service restaurant, a limited service restaurant, and bars. And so if that restaurant was an establishment with a drive-through availability, they were eliminated. If they had 0 or limited dining presence and whose primary operation appeared to be more carryout or delivery, like a pizza place, they were eliminated from eligibility. And so also if they had closed. And so with that in mind, they looked at all the communities, looking at that criteria, and they identified how many would be in each community, and then what we would be eligible for. And then they looked at other factors such as our participation, our willingness to participate in order to arrange for the deliveries and the deployment. 70% of that decision was on the number of establishments, and then 15% was based on whether or not the community had a DDA or TIFA or some type of a planned development area. So this was the recap, and it lists all of the communities in Oakland County that were eligible. And then it looked at those percentages in order to come to an amount. So if you look at line 24, Line Township, we were allotted $34,000, 34.4. Based on the items that I've already ordered, which I mentioned earlier, now that amount is down to $29,767. And so again, it is, if we want more materials at this stage for round 2, we would place the order. So if we want more of these greenhouses, we would buy the greenhouses and then we would submit for reimbursement. If we want the greenhouses and we want to or need to have them on platforms that are also ADA compliant, then we would pay for that. Home Depot is offering at a fee to build the greenhouses. That fee is $1,050. That's for 2 people to labor for an 8-hour period putting together each greenhouse. And that's per greenhouse. And then if you want the platform with the ADA ramp, then that's it's an additional cost. And I think the whole cost comes to like $2,000. So we're getting reimbursed for the greenhouses, and we're getting reimbursed for the platform, but you're basically having to pay for both of those up front. So you can see why this requires some input from everyone, because it's a commitment. We could take that $29,000 and we could buy other types of materials like additional heaters. We can ask the restaurants what they've paid up to this point. I know that New Hudson Inn invested in some fire pits and lights, and those are all things that could be eligible for reimbursement. That's another route that we can take. We can also, I was also told to, at the end of this all, add another $5,000 wish list, because not all of those 53 communities are taking advantage of this. So we may have additional funding left over when this is all done, that we might be able to get more items. So they encouraged us to put together a little wish list as well. So there's a reimbursement component. We could ask for the money. We could say, hey, can you just give us the $29,000 and then we'll distribute it as we see fit. So we could run our own reimbursement program where the restaurants would fill out a form and send it to the DDA, and the DDA then would reimburse them with the grant money. So we can manage it that route. That's another route to take. So in round 1, it was very succinct. It was very timely. It had to be executed. It was a rapid decision. In round 2, they're providing us with a little bit more leeway and a little bit more opportunity for us to have a say in what's very unique and special to our downtowns versus trying to make us all fit into one particular guideline. So do I have anything else to share with that?
Is there any documentation?
So they're working on things like the licensing agreement. There are some communities that have already started that process. And they're going to be sharing with us some examples that we could utilize. So we're not all starting from scratch. I had asked for a plan for the platform, because maybe we have a local carpenter who could do that a little bit more easier. And they said that Home Depot really wasn't excited about sharing the plan for the platform, because they would like for them to build the platform. But it's pretty straightforward. It's basically, it'd probably be something like a 9x13 decking. And the reason you do that is because the greenhouse has an open floor. So for instance, if we put a greenhouse over it, or 2, let's say we take the 2 that we ordered and we put it at the New Hudson Inn, they don't have cement. So you really do want to eliminate any muddy kind of buildup. So you would elevate that.
When you said it was $1,050, was that just labor cost, or was that the material cost as well?
That is the labor cost to construct the greenhouse, because the greenhouse comes in 2 boxes with all the materials included.
So, okay, so that wasn't that was just for the erecting the greenhouse.
Correct. And if you want to have the platform, then that price is $2,000 for the greenhouse assembly and the platform construction.
And then we have to disassemble it when this is over.
Or not.
So there's a cost.
that's the question is,
Or do-
where do we store it? Do we as a DDA feel that that's something we could use in the future? Some of the communities are taking advantage of this opportunity to say, we're going to lend them out during this crisis, but then afterwards we're going to use those in our farmers market or in some type of a pop-up shop type of scenario, which we've talked a little bit about ourselves, where, maybe we partner with the church, and in the months of May through October, we set up like a pop-up shop, a retail gathering in the downtown. So, and I mentioned the church because they serve as an incubator because they have a commercial kitchen, and perhaps some of the people using or making products there or anywhere. We have a lot of cottage industry businesses here in the township too. Maybe we do it like a pop-up shop type of thing where on weekends people come and they set up inside these igloo or these greenhouses. The thing is, it's a commitment, right? They're assets that we would need to use. The rule is once your community secures them, they're yours. So how we use them is going to be up to us. Right now, greenhouses not permitted in the DDA. Just like they're considered like a storage container, they're not a permitted use, but because we've laxed our ordinances for COVID, they are. You could put them in the park. You could give one to the library to use as a greenhouse. It's actually a greenhouse.
Has anybody spoken to the restaurants, the owners, to see if they've already spent money or if they've done anything that they would?
Yeah, I have. Yep. So most of them have. We have a couple like a line grill, and that's the other thing is I'm wearing two hats with this, and this is where I have to go back to the township too, because they're looking to get all feedback from Lyon Township, and because I do economic development for Lyon Township and I'm the DDA coordinator, we do have the one restaurant that meets the criteria, and that is the Lyon Grill on the south side of town. So they haven't they didn't do any outdoor seating for this whole past year. Even in the summer, and they have a beautiful outdoor patio, but they chose not to take that route. Then you have someone like Kensington Grill, where I spoke with him and he said, hey, you know what? I like these ideas, but I'm actually considering maybe building a whole new patio. So even after the crisis, I'm still able to use my outdoor patio. So it's really getting a lot of these folks thinking. There was a little hesitance in December from some of the restaurants because they just weren't convinced that the greenhouses would be permitted with the Michigan Liquor Control.
Or she's going to change the rules.
Or the rules will change, or, you place them in a parking lot and you need to have them within so many feet because you're selling alcohol. So you can't have it too far away. Well, some people like the idea of their carryout order folks being able to park right next to the door and get their carryouts. So if you put 2 or 3 greenhouses there, then they have to park further down.
Right.
Every one of our restaurants expressed some level of interest, but they just were, it was a lot to hash out in a short period of time. And now we have a little bit of time now to kind of work through it. And I talked to Draft Horse. Draft Horse was another good example. They've invested in a tent. They can only use one side of the tent. And we talked about igloo placement and greenhouse placement, and he can really only do that on his grass, but it's kind of uneven. So we would have to put some type of platform there. And then we started talking further and further. And then we thought, well, maybe it might be best just to get a whole bunch of heaters, like maybe get 6 picnic tables and put 2 heaters, one on either side of the picnic table, and create like a warming area. And then people can sit outside at the picnic tables, and he would choose not to have any covering over his area. And then I wanted to show you too at the new Hudson Inn. I'll show you in a little bit. They have the outdoor fire pits, and those are permitted. The fire department, see, there's the other thing too. I had to talk to the fire department about all the propane heaters and if they had any issues with what was that was being proposed. And thankfully they didn't. They were very supportive. But at the new Hudson Inn, they have the fire pits. They can only have 6 chairs around each fire pit. The health department wants everyone seated. They can't be standing and just kind of meandering around. They're there's just a lot of rules and regulations. So we're very excited that we have access to funding, but we just want to make sure that we're spending it wisely. And of course, I'm working with the township here internally, administratively, to make sure that whatever decisions we're working on, that our enforcement officer understands it, our building inspector understands it, our fire department understands it, so that we don't, we have a really open line of communication here.
So you indicated that we could just accept the remaining cash. Are there any stipulations? Is there a time frame for when you have to spend it by, how you spend it, who you spend it? You know what I mean? Like, there's always a catch to free money.
We don't have those details yet because the agreement is not completed, but they did provide a time frame here where in mid-January, the phase 2 application would be presented to us. And then they expect to have that interlocal agreement signed. So they're giving time, obviously like the township, I wanted to have it signed in January, but it wasn't going to be completed yet. So February 1st will be our next opportunity for the township board to sign it. And then at our February meeting, we would then get authorization for the DDA to sign it as well. And then March is the application review and the actual issuing of the grant awards if the county is going to be processing them.
So it'll be just in time for spring when everybody doesn't need them?
Well, we can get them now. We get them now.
Oh,
Right. So the application, so like our application might say we'd like the money. And then I just have to really scramble to get things ordered and get things distributed. So that
Troy,
impact.
Troy, does Wonder Jump have the ability to secure these igloos?
No more than anybody else right now, because those igloos are gone. I mean, they're very difficult to find.
And that's
Okay.
why working with the county has been helpful, because the county went ahead and partnered with like Home Depot and said, if you can secure 500 heaters for us at X amount of price, we'll participate in this execution of this grant program. And they were able to do it. Some communities asked for greenhouses, but did not get greenhouses because they didn't have enough. So they ended up going with igloos. The other thing that's occurring now, and I can understand why the county went with phase 2 and having us order the heaters and whatnot, is because the prices are starting to really be driven up. So many places now are ordering them that either they're going to be on back order or they're going to be a much higher cost.
The problem with the heaters, I mean, those propane heaters are outdoor patio heaters. They're not approved for indoor use or inside of a tent.
Right. Yeah. That's
even though there's a lot of companies out there that'll use them in a tent, the fire departments won't approve them, so they're just putting them in there. Just hoping that the fire department doesn't come and they don't care.
Yeah, no, and so the fire department, so our deputy told me that he wants to see the spec sheet when we get the product, actual physical product, the sheet that comes with it, because sometimes you can have a 3 or 4 foot space between the top of the heater or the sides of the heater. But that would not be under a tent under any circumstances. But it may be, maybe someone has an outdoor patio and their roof is, 12 feet high, and it does fit within the guidelines.
Yeah, for those applications, absolutely.
Right. So we
I have a comment about the floors. It would seem to me that flooring shouldn't be that big of a problem because people who have outdoor weddings, and Troy, you might be able to speak to this, when you put a tent up and people put a dance floor, that's just all pieces and they just put it together. And at the end of the night, they take it apart. So I would think that we should be able to source flooring for this, pretty easily is my guess, rather than hiring Home Depot and, having to pay that kind of money to them to put together a floor that, any of us could probably just snap and put it together. So
it's also the securing of the structure. So if it were, it's like they were he mentioned something about being able to secure it to an asphalt. So I don't know if that's a spike of some sort. Might go.
No, that's a man. I mean, Paul, you're 100% right. I mean, a dance floor or a regular floor is certainly for a tent, is certainly not as complicated as one for the igloo. But the igloo, is not. I mean, $2,000 or $2,100, $2,200 to put in a 9x12 platform or floor and securing it to asphalt is not. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. I mean,
Well, remember, it's not 2,000 for the floor. That's
no,
2,000.
it's 1,000 for the floor, 1,050 for the labor or whatever you said.
The
But I'm
assembly.
yeah. I'm saying like $2,200.
Yeah.
Okay, labor and the floor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So $2,200 for labor and the floor, and it's going to include securing it to the ground, or maybe not even asphalt, maybe just to the ground in general. That's a lot of money. I'm sure there's companies out there that can do it for less than that. A general, like a little general contractor type person can do it for that. A lot less than that.
And we have that option.
Plenty of people in the community who we could hire to do that rather than Home Depot.
Right. The only, and it's not really applicable to us because we don't have a full DPW staff. Oddly enough, if you had your DPW staff build it, it would not be eligible for labor reimbursement. But if you hire somebody, yeah. So because some communities thought they could save some costs if they could just have their own crews do it and then just get reimbursed for that, but you can't.
Yeah, but I agree with you, Paul. There'd be a lot less costs, I think. Home Depot's looking at it being a premium, I think.
Mm-hmm. And it's got to be something that would be simple to like snap together and take it down.
Yeah. So what do we need to do from this point forward? Anything, Tina, as far as this concerned, or is this kind of educational right now?
It's educational at this point, but it's also, like I said, with this agreement, this interlocal agreement, the way they described it is that this whole discussion is like they call it a gentleman's agreement, but it's basically saying you're participating and you're a part of it before you sign your agreement. And so I think I'm not concerned with that because I know that we have multiple communities in Oakland County and we're all in communication with Oakland County. And I did have our attorney look over the draft agreement and she didn't see anything in there that flagged for us. And the agreement that they're working on now as they fine tune it is supposed to be even more simplified than the one that they had presented. So
is there any liability for if we take it over and then we decide how to allocate it? Is there any liability on us, or how do we have a set of rules, or do they have a set of rules that they hand us with this money to be able to manage it?
They do not, but I do have a call into our insurance carrier to see what their thoughts are.
Well, I think that's a great point. My inclination would be to see if there was an opportunity to secure the funding, the money, and then reach out to our restaurants, have a date, a deadline where they could submit, receipts for, seasonal items that they've purchased, to help them through the pandemic. And then we disperse on a, either pro rata basis or something. Boy, it just seems difficult to me trying to guess what all these restaurants might want and in what quantity. And then I too agree with Paula that I just think that if it's your stuff and we somehow are either delivering it or arranging for the assemblage of it, it breaks, somebody falls, just.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing is how much extra work does that put on us to have to then scour through everybody's application, and then we have to make a decision, and then that's a vote. I mean, there's so many other things. I think that if we can just let the county manage that, since they can, and like you're saying, Christina, that if we can just, let them secure the funding and let them apply and let the county deal with all of the details.
If we secure the funding, it's up to us to deal with it.
Oh, okay. So we're not securing it for them, like we would secure it and we
Well,
would
that's-
distribute it.
That's an option. So
Okay.
option one is the applications go to the county and they're reviewed and reimbursed. Option two would be because if we secure the monies, then we can go back to the restaurants and say, maybe it isn't about acquiring new material. Maybe it's more about reimbursing them for what they've already spent.
That's going to be the quickest way to get the funds out.
Right.
So-
And how many restaurants actually have the ability to set up outdoor or actually, you know what I mean? Like it's not going to be all encompassing for all of them. So how many restaurants really are going to be applicable in this matter?
Exactly. And then some of them don't want to give up parking spaces in order for the greenhouses to go there. And again, a lot of restaurants through this whole process have just been bombarded with rules and regulations, and they're being visited by the health department, MIOSHA, Michigan Liquor Control. It's really interesting. And then MIOSHA just came out with this new program where you can actually, and I just found out about this yesterday, you can call them and invite them to come to your location, and they go through a list of things, and then you get a little decal that goes on your door of your business that says, MIOSHA came out and checked all of the COVID things that you're doing and you look good. And
you can't even go in the restaurant. So it's like all you're doing is going there, picking it up and leaving. So
well, it's whatever those guidelines are right now today. So
at the very bottom, it says general PPE supplies. Right there, you could pretty much tell anybody if you got face mask or hand sanitizer, save your receipts and we can get you reimbursed for some money.
Yeah.
So at least all of our restaurants are getting some money.
right. And the only stipulation with that is it has to be from the initial order, which I think was November 15th. I'm getting all these dates crazy, mixed
And when
up.
they shut them down.
Yeah, when that initial order went in. So if they bought something like in September, that's not eligible. But if they bought whatever they've purchased from the initial order in November through the end of December would be eligible for reimbursement.
So in the meantime, we have two greenhouses coming.
Well, I've applied for them and I was
Okay.
approved for them, but I did not take delivery of them because I wanted to talk with everyone first. So we don't have to take delivery of these. Right now, only Chris Stone at the New Hudson Inn was interested in them, but he wasn't like gung-ho interested in them. So, because again, all of these restaurants have to have dedicated people. Then you have to train people on what they need to do. It's sanitizing the entire interior is an extra step. So without that level of commitment, do we really want to move forward? So I want all of you to know about the program and what's been done to this point, how we're moving forward, wanting to get your input on whether I should ask for all of the funding and then we'll distribute it. Because we're still hashing out some details here. And like I said, I have one restaurant that said he just kind of wants to see what others are doing in Oakland County first before he even engages in the process. Like he'd like to see some of these actually in place because he put a tent up at his Howell location and gotten in a lot of trouble with the Michigan Liquor Control. And he's like, I just don't want any of that on our record at all. So there.
Well, the other thing is these tents and igloos, we don't, when I'm talking to Dan and Brenda at the winery, like you can't even get a hold of these. So I would check on that too, though, and find out like if they're available, if they are, when can they be available? Because if you go ahead and order them and then they don't come till September,
Right.
well, that's not a really great idea either. So
Right.
I think that program, while it sounds great, it's really going to be hinging upon availability of the product.
That's true. And COVID has set back a lot of production
Yeah.
and delivery. So,
Yeah. Dan said they wanted to get another igloo and they can't find them.
right.
And
Or,
then of course the costs have skyrocketed on them.
right. Or the size of the igloo, which for Dan's location, he can get 6 people in that igloo.
Yeah.
Well, we might have to get like a 20-person igloo and only put 6 people in it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
those are all things that, we're trying to work through and
Yeah.
yeah.
You won't even find a 20-person igloo right now. Yeah, I
do like the idea of securing some additional propane heaters because we could use those at events. The challenge then we have is, where do we store those? So right now, because we have no basement here in the township and we're waiting for the addition to be completed, I'm storing stuff in the water tower, a 9 Mile, because it's the only facility we have that we can just put items into storage. So, I have to talk with John Dolan and the township to find out, if we were to secure these items, then where do we store them?
well, those propane heaters come boxed.
Mhm.
So until you assemble them, they're not bad. But once you assemble them, they're a pain to find a place to put them.
Right, but we should assemble. I mean, that's the whole
Yeah,
point.
they would need to be put into use, I think.
Right, they have to be put. That's part of
Yeah.
the grant is that they
Yeah.
need to put into use because when you fill out the application, it does say where. Like when I filled it out in December, it said, "Where would you put these 2 greenhouses?" And I said, "Well, we have a restaurant in our downtown that is willing to accept the 2 greenhouses, and we would locate them on their property." So they do ask for specific details on how they will be used. It's not like an opportunity to take advantage of
Yeah.
it, grab whatever materials.
Okay.
Or they get them. We don't have an agreement. We just say, here's your heaters. Use them as you see fit, when you see fit, whether it's COVID or past COVID.
Okay. Any questions? Any other comments, Tina, or any other questions?
I'll do my best to keep you all informed as we go along. It really is. We have an administrative team meeting next week too, so I'm going to get all of our staff here up to speed on it as well. It's very fluid right now. Very fluid.
Okay.
Lots of fun.
As long as
Okay.
it's helping them, right? That's the whole point of it.
All right. DDA board nomination and vote for DDA secretary.
Right. So I wanted to bring this up because, as you know, Robert has resigned from the DDA and he was our acting secretary. So if I'd like to put out there, if there's anyone who is interested in serving in that position or would like to nominate somebody for that position, I think we need to get that filled ASAP. So
What's that person's responsibilities?
the responsibility is, as you know, we have Rose, who is our recording secretary. So the responsibility of our existing secretary is to sign and document all of the minutes that are provided by Rose. And Rose also signs them, co-signs them. And also to basically work with me to just keep track, make sure that we have all of our records that are in place. I keep a pretty tight ship, so I'm not so much worried about that. But they also serve as a member of the executive board. So whenever the executive board meets, which would be the chair, vice chair, and secretary, when that committee meets, they would be participating in that committee and in those decision processes. Also, we can designate, the DDA board can designate if any of our contracts need to be signed, they can designate the chair to sign it, or they can designate the secretary to sign it. In the absence of the chair or the co-chair or the vice chair, then the secretary is eligible to sign agreements and contracts as well.
Anybody want to sign up?
You also get bragging rights that you served as the secretary on the DDA. Are those crickets?
I think it was my pen.
Sounds like it to me.
You know what? I think Paula spoke first.
Well, hold on, because I'm also going to be talking about committees as well. So
Well, you can be an officer and a committee chairperson,
I might need a glass of wine for this conversation.
or several. Are you interested?
Oh, so there are two positions that I'm never interested as a board member, and one is secretary and the other one's treasurer. So I will
Defer.
I will pretty much take any position except either one of those two.
You know, I was secretary. I'm secretary of Pumpkin Fest, and there were two agreements that I had. A, that I would never take a note, and B, that I would never put on a dress. One of them I've maintained.
I will say, because we do have a recording secretary, I mean, Rose does a great job taking our notes and putting that all together. So unlike other secretary positions where the people are responsible for taking notes of them and putting the minutes together and sharing those minutes, we have a recording secretary. So that definitely.
Oh, okay. So what does this supposed secretary do?
Sure.
Repeat that for me before I just go, oh, that sounds great. I'll take it.
Hold on. Okay.
Is that wine? Is that wine you're drinking?
Yeah, I didn't want to put it in a clear glass. I didn't want you guys to know. I thought it looked better if I maintained a professional, it looked like tea. What are you drinking, Jason?
I got tea and some coconut water.
Oh, I thought that was a beer.
No.
Hold on a second, I'm pulling it up. Oh, sorry. Oh. Come on, where is it? Okay, here it is. So I'm actually reading this out of our bylaws. Secretary, very simple. Secretary, who shall have the authority to execute documents in the name of the Board of Directors and shall perform such other duties as the Board Directors may from time to time determine.
That's
so
pretty open-ended.
Signing the minutes, you're eligible to be a signatory on contracts, and then being a part of the executive committee. Like, for instance, we've talked about redoing our bylaws. So it would be the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary that would meet to just go over those bylaws, be a part of that process, and make that recommendation back to the DDA board. So there's some involvement, but it's determined as needed.
I was going to say, I don't know if I can say this, if this is appropriate or not, but I'm just going to say it. It sounds like I'm the DDA's bitch.
Hey, Paula, Robert was a secretary for years,
Yeah.
and he never did a thing.
Okay, fine. That's all I needed to know.
But that's not why we want you.
Oh, wait. Oh, that's why he's no longer secretary. All right, how long is this position for?
Lifetime.
Oh.
It's an annually.
All right. Okay.
So our board of directors, you guys are so elected for a term, but for these positions, the officers, it's a 1-year term.
Okay. All right, I'll dive into it.
Thank you. And I'd like to
I'm kicking and
nominate,
screaming. I'm kicking and screaming.
I'd like to nominate Dr. Paul Ruffin for the position of secretary before she changes her mind.
I'll second that motion.
Hey, at least I was here, you guys. I got voted president of my my association here at my homeowners association at a meeting I wasn't attending.
I'm gonna.
That's worse.
Yeah.
Oh, it was terrible. Yeah. They keep voting me and they either love what I'm doing or nobody wants the job.
Okay, did you want to put that to a vote then?
You ready?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, Troy,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Adorno,
Yes.
Paula.
No.
Okay, Troy, I got Troy. Jason,
Yes.
Carissa,
Yes.
motion carried.
Paula, just so you know, I'm changing my number shortly.
And then with that in mind, just reminding everyone with Robert leaving, then if you have any suggestions on a new addition for a board member, we do have, and Paula and Chris have already done this, we do have an application that would need to be completed. But if you want to recommend somebody to be a part of the DDA board to fill that position, just let me know and I can reach out to them.
Oh, so I've moved out of my position into another position, so that's leaving an opening?
When Robert resigned, it left an opening. He just happened to
got
be secretary too, right?
Got it.
So
Okay.
we'll go ahead and make the change on the website to move you to
Okay.
the secretary position. And then we just in general have an open position. We usually have a board of 9 members, so we're short a member.
Okay.
And
Cool.
Mark, you are a true salesman. Robert did nothing.
Oh God, I'm in so much trouble.
That's not on the record, is it?
Recorded for history.
Okay, now we need a new chair for the Design and Appearance Committee.
So that's something else. Robert also served as the chair for design and appearance.
Hey, Paula, but
Wait, now what am I doing? What am I doing now? But hang on. Let me just get off the call. You guys just vote me in wherever you want.
so what does that person do?
Yeah, I'm pulling that up too now. So you can
What's this one? What if I decide I want that one instead?
Well, you don't have to have it instead.
Oh, I can have.
You can have it in addition. Okay.
I'm gonna go fill my wine. Buy 3 hearts from Wholehearted Winery.
So our design and appearance committee, the activities would include, you're basically looking at the overall design of our downtown. And this is all captured in the vision plan and development plan that we have. It's looking for ways to actually looking to implement what's already in the plan. And you can also identify if there's any other areas for improvement. So like a good example, and I'm going to share this a little bit later, is for the amount of time that we've been spending in the downtown with this display, Troy and I even noticed a lot of our streetlights, which we don't manage our streetlights, but the township does. So all of those Cobra head reaching out streetlights that are on the wooden light poles, those are all owned by DTE, and they have what's called mercury vapor. They're really old type of lights. They take a long time to kind of kick on, warm up. They don't give off a bright light. They give off a yellow tinted light. And so our downtown is kind of lighted. So the committee, Design and Appearance Committee, like if you hold that committee meeting and we're talking about a list of all the agenda items, like I could come to that meeting and say, I think we should talk about these lights. I think this is probably a good idea for us to reach out to DTE and ask them to swap out the heads of those lights with LEDs that are more efficient and they burn brighter and they turn on right away. It doesn't take time for them to warm up. Like there's all these pluses to it. So that's a type of project that the design and appearance could work on. The design and appearance committee is also responsible for reviewing the applications for our facade improvement grant. So when a business is interested in applying, they fill out the application, and then I bring that application to the design and appearance committee. So I'm a member of all of our committees, and so is the chair. The chair is not a required member, but can be a member of all the committees as well. And so that application would be brought to that committee, and then that committee reviews it and then makes a recommendation to the DDA board on whether or not we should approve that application. So that's one of the main objectives for that committee. So since I've been here, I think we've had 3 or 4 design and appearance applications that had to be reviewed. So, we don't get them very often. And design and appearance committee is also tasked with maybe updating that facade improvement grant. If there's any changes that need to be made to it or updates to it, it would be this committee that would do that in committee work. And you can see here too, it lists photo inventories. You don't need to do that because I take a million photos. Building information inventory, I have that too in our database. Any type of public improvements, design assistance, historic preservation. This is the committee that we would bring these types of things to. So in a nutshell, that's the design and appearance committee's obligations. So we're missing a chair to head that committee. So right now you can see here, Mark is with Economic Restructuring Committee, as it's so called today. And Troy was, or is, because we haven't replaced him yet, on the Promotions Committee, and we don't need to because you can still be an executive officer and hold a position. And then the 4th committee is actually our Organization Committee, which is our officers. Any takers? This is actually, if you think about it, this is a type of committee where it's very visible. The work of this committee is something that is seen right away in the community. Just like when the New Hudson Inn did all of their facade improvements and upgrades, when they took off the aluminum siding to expose all of the beautiful original clapboard, and they applied for a grant to paint it and update it. There's something really nice about being on this committee because you can see the direct results of your committee work right away.
Carissa?
I don't think that's my strong suit. Sorry, guys.
No? Okay.
And Robert was in charge of the committee, and we only really called committee meetings when we had an application. So, our committee chairs, it really just depends on who the person is and your level of time and commitment and passion that you have. So like Troy's really passionate about promotions. So when he took over the committee, he was able to recruit about 20 volunteers to participate in that committee, which I think is the highest we've ever had. He had a very clear idea of what he thinks should be done promotion-wise. He set those meeting dates right away. You're not required to meet every month. It really is based on what your objectives and program of work is for the committee. And you can see under his leadership for that promotions committee, we executed a lot of work this year, which was perfect timing for COVID. But more importantly, the committee was already in place prior to COVID hitting. So we were able to really respond quickly and be able to mobilize our committee volunteers together to help execute all the things that had to take place.
Hey, Adorno, how about you? I mean, you have a lot of input on different areas and a lot of experience in different cities and communities.
Yeah,
These
no, I know I do. I
Are
hate
these-
to commit to something given my calendar as it is.
Yeah, I know.
I'd love to. That's why I jumped on that Saturday morning volunteer. So
That was awesome. That was
I
great to see you.
Yeah.
I can get that. It just, it's so hard. My emails are still going right now.
Let me share this. Where'd it go? Here. I'm kind of getting a little bit ahead, but I'll share this. So just to kind of give everyone an idea of potentially what this committee would work on, we have plans for the development of the North. We are going to be working on plans for the development of the northwest corner of Grand River and Milford Road. And this is both a economic restructuring and also a design and appearance committee type of project, is putting together an RFP on what type of development we'd like there, but also what we would like it to look like. So the committee's program of work can be quite involving in that it's exciting to be able to have input on this. Another example is with the development of that corner, we've talked about maybe putting some type of a columbarium wall that would separate the commercial development here with the historic cemetery. So this is also something that could be discussed in design and appearance. Another type of project that could be discussed is the township is resurfacing all of our Huron Valley Trail, and it's being done in 3 phases. So the first phase has already been completed. And with that, we've not really made any effort to try to promote the trail or encourage people to use the trail to get into the DDA. There's wayfinding sign opportunities. This is another example of what the Design and Appearance Committee could be working on, is coming up with some ideas on how to brand the Huron Valley Trail. The Michigan Airline Trail was just completed, and their committee came up with this really cool, logo. This is the Clinton River Trail. They have wayfinding signs. They have kiosks. We can talk about putting in some types of bike racks to encourage people to come off the trail and into the downtown. And what would that look like? This was really cool. I think this was in Japan or something. You actually pull your bike up and you can eat and do work while you're sitting on your bike. But those are just some of the fun and exciting things that folks on this committee could do. And as the chair, I would work with you to try to recruit more people in the community to be a part of that committee, like be members of it. And we could set up maybe quarterly meetings just to get the ball rolling, to just come up with some ideas, to review the program of work, to look at what our objectives are in our vision plan that need to still be executed. So anyways, I just wanted to share some ideas on what that committee would entail.
Now, Jason, we're going to come to you next. What kind of time frame do you have availability? Of course, none of it takes much time. It doesn't really take a ton of time.
Right. You kind of create your own. You're executing the DDA's program of work, but you're having to do it. You're prioritizing and you're deciding, do you need to meet once a month? Could you meet twice, like every other month? Or maybe it's once a quarter? Because especially with COVID, we just have not been meeting. And there's 4 areas of a DDA that need to be focused on at all times, regardless if we're cleaning out a drain or whatever our infrastructure projects are. You still want to make sure that those 4 areas are always being worked on a regular basis. And I'll help you.
Jason's staying muted purposely.
Hey, Jason,
Yeah.
Robert was on that committee. He was
Yeah.
the chairman for like 5 years and he never did a thing.
So I'm assuming there's nobody else in the committee currently?
There are. We do.
Oh.
We have, and part of that is we try to recruit specific people. So like Doug Nietzsche is an architect. And it's always a good idea to have at least one architect on the committee. And then Chris Roberts is actually a resident. Troy was also on this committee. And then Dan Cheresco, who is a property owner. He owns the Hudson building in the downtown.
That's a good group of people.
It is, and it has worked for us. It'd be nice to maybe get some additional residents involved, or maybe a few other business owners. I know that for a while there, we had some promotion committee people, like I think Stephanie with New Hudson Inn had expressed an interest, but we haven't really recruited as much as we could. So there is potential to get more people involved. The only problem is when you have a short amount of people, if you can't get everyone to meet at one time, it can get a little harder to get things accomplished. So it's nice to, it's nice to have maybe 10 people on a committee, just so that when there's people who can't make it, you can still get work done.
I'll take it. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but
Good job, Mark.
Thank you, Jason.
Do we have the nomination?
I nominate Jason. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
I would like to make a motion to nominate Jason Egan to the Design and Appearance Committee Chair.
I'll second the motion. Thank you, Jason.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Jason.
Okay, Adorno,
Yes.
Troy,
Yes.
Carissa,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Paula.
Yes.
Okay, motion carried.
Thank you, volunteers.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome.
Well, look at that, Tina. We replaced people that weren't even on in the new business agenda.
How do you mean? Oh,
The two positions, and the two of those positions, or one of the positions wasn't even on the, well, I guess it was. Never mind, I take it back. All right, setting of dates for DDA.
so I'm not going to ask you guys to set your dates at this meeting. What I wanted to do is to make sure that we had the chairs in position so that I can reach out now.
Oh,
So,
that's what that was.
yeah. So I'm not expecting anyone to come up with dates right now. It's just, I wanted to let you all know that once we have these filled, then I'll be reaching out to get some dates on the calendar so that we can push the program of work along. Oh, with that in mind then, Troy, are you going to continue to serve as the promotions chair?
No,
So we're going to need to fill that position too.
yes.
How about we do that at the next meeting?
Sure.
I think
We
we,
probably need to bring another person in. So we have
yeah,
another
exactly.
candidate.
Right. It's probably, I mean, that's exactly it. You know, that's why we have 9 board members at all times. So,
Well, not if I have to be organization committee chairperson. I'm not gonna do both.
and we do have some things like normally that position is not, that organization does not meet very often at all. So because we're going over the bylaws, that will require some work. But I can't think of anything anything else that would be a priority at this stage. So
Yeah, well, that's a good committee to be on then.
it's a fun, I mean, they all have their pluses, you know, and I don't really see any drawbacks.
Well, no, I'm talking about the organization committee, because I don't think that committee's met in years, has it?
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. So
That's a good committee to be on.
I think Robert was a chair of that committee, wasn't he?
Yeah, so is Jay Howie.
Robert. Butt of our jokes. Okay.
Okay, E.
Social gathering spaces. So I wanted to bring this up tonight because you may have heard of other DDAs and other communities initiating what's called social gathering spaces. This was actually a law that was put into place where the Michigan Liquor Control would work with communities who were interested in establishing local gathering spaces that were designated areas where people could leave the premise of a licensed server, like a restaurant, and go to another location in the downtown to consume that alcoholic beverage. So it basically is creating a social gathering location or designated area. So downtown Farmington has come up with their social gathering area, and they've been really heavily marketing it. So I don't know if you guys have heard about it or not, but I wanted to bring it up because not all communities are doing it, because there are some pretty strict sets of rules on how it needs to be implemented. There's certain types of glasses that need to be used. They're the same type that you're seeing right now with to-go. If you go to like a restaurant and you order a to-go margarita, it comes in a particular type of glass or packaging. Those are the same things that would be allowed or permitted. Now, it was always my understanding that in order for that to work, you had to find 2 licensees that were consecutively located in your DDA and create your gathering space around it. So let's say you had like an alleyway and it was between 2 licensed, you could turn that whole alleyway into a social gathering space. And you have to designate the area, cordon it off, all that stuff. So here you can see let me go back and show. For the syndicate, I'm just gonna make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. They've basically turned their entire downtown into one of these locations. So you can see here, not only do they have, and they can do this because they have like an ice rink right here that's also serving as their farmer's market, and they had an open park. So people are able to walk along their brand new streetscape and consume alcohol in these areas. So
Tina,
Because we can't see anything.
Oh,
Are you
yeah,
trying to?
I have page 2 of the agenda still on there.
here,
Yeah, I did too. It's gone now.
here, let me pull, I'll try sharing again. Hold on. There we go.
It sounded so pretty.
Yeah, so here's the layout. Where, can you see that now? I'm sorry, I forgot to ask. Can you see it?
Can you blow it up?
I can. Get out of there. So this is downtown Farmington. They've designated the boundaries and they've identified the different businesses that are participating in this. And this is where they have their community ice rink and farmers market area, and then they have a park right here. And so they've designated the area where people can roam and consume alcohol. And the theory behind these social gathering spaces is that it would encourage people to come into the downtown and visit and frequent these restaurants and take these drinks to go. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because, I've been trying to go through the requirements to see if it's something that we would be even interested in doing. And I think there are a couple things that we should talk about, and that is that we don't have a streetscape, that we don't have sidewalks, consistent sidewalks throughout our downtown. It is a darker downtown because we don't have street lights, because we don't have a streetscape. And we do have a number of parking lots, like for instance, this would be between the new Hudson Inn and the winery. You would set up a social gathering space in that parking lot. And so we would be giving up parking spaces in order to establish this. So I think our downtown in particular has some limitations on establishing this type of use, but I wanted to at least get your opinion on it and then explain how others are doing it, because sometimes folks will see these and say, oh, well, how come we're not doing that? Or even in the city of South Lyon, they'll have, why hasn't the city set up a social gathering space? And they're probably more positioned to do so than we are, because they have dedicated public parking lots that they could utilize, and they also have sidewalks and streetscapes to take advantage of. But and that this is an example of what that social gathering space potentially could look like. Again, it's a lot of downtowns already have some of these type of gathering spaces in place, or they have some pocket parks that they can utilize that are within walking distance of these types of facilities. So I don't think we have the type of downtown that's conducive for this. But
Is that space on the northwest corner where Putters used to be, is that usable? Are these supposed to end up being permanent places, or are these temporary? So
they could be permanent, but you have to take into consideration that you're encouraging people to roam around with open alcohol in a very busy intersection.
Yeah, okay.
The dark intersection. So there's other things that, like I said, there are some downtowns that have buildings one after another. They're just more established than our downtown is. And so they can do it. There are some downtowns that are like that aren't doing any social gathering spaces, because it does require more maintenance on the part of the DDA or the downtown.
How does that work with like liquor licensing and the liquor commission?
Right. So it would be like we would be applying for the social gathering space.
Okay. And this might sound a little I don't know if it's appropriate, but I mean, that lawn in front of the church is so perfect, and they're wanting to get more exposure. Would that be something that they would want to do?
That's true, but it's not adjacent to or in between two licensed.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear you say that. Got it.
Right, that, and there's whenever we're using someone else's property, there's also a liability that needs to be addressed with that. So.
We can use a Rice Street property.
Except for we don't have a liquor license, right? It's funny how that multi-tenant building works with liquor licensees. Because we were trying to make it so that they could use the back patio. There's a back deck on that building. I don't know if you guys know that. There's an open deck that is open to a suite that had been vacant, but now it's occupied. And we were trying to get the liquor control to allow both Novella's and Jonah's customers to be able to sit on that back deck and be served. Yeah. And the liquor control did not like the idea of servers going up and down the hallway, they'd have to go down the hall of the mall with their make a delivery. And it was just too far. They'd like the serving areas to be within 25 feet. That's actually a regulation. Your outdoor serving area needs to be within 25 feet of the licensed facility.
Well, Tina, we really only have one place that this would be applicable to.
Right.
So, I mean, is there really much?
I don't think we're ready for this.
Yeah, I mean, there's really much discussion about it. I mean, New Hudson Inn leases that parking lot, and that's really the only place it could go.
Right. So, but the only reason I brought it up is because we're seeing more and more of these established communities taking advantage of this opportunity and establishing these social gatherings. I think they have them now in Plymouth. I think they're out in Howell. So I just wanted you as a board, a DDA board, to be aware of it in case someone asks about it, or if someone says, ask the question, why don't we have them? Or why has the hey, Paula, has the DDA considered this? Now you're all informed. You can come back and say, we're aware of them. We know that some communities are implementing them, but we're just not at that stage yet with our downtown. So.
Thank you.
Sorry, I had to get the dogs in. Okay. So, all right. So we really can't do much on that.
No, and there wasn't an action item to take.
Okay.
It was more of an education opportunity to just kind of get get you guys up to speed on what it is and how they're being implemented, and just get your feedback too on if you agree with my assessment that we're just not ready as a DDA to move forward with that.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay.
Okay. Reports?
Okay, so my report is going to be short and sweet tonight because I
What?
downloaded everything. And I put it into a little PowerPoint presentation with pictures. So I just wanted to give a recap of this holiday display to kind of show you just some images if you weren't able to get out there. We did have some signs up that did state that it was sponsored by the Lyon Township DDA. This is what it looked like during the day. We also tried to incorporate supporting of our local businesses with our Shop Local and Dine Local signs. So it was turned on about 4 o'clock. And the inflatables were up and running. You can see there's a lot of traffic here this day on Grand River. So we did that on occasion so that we could get people interested in wanting to come out. You saw on the consent agenda that we did acquire some materials to make some of these lollipops. These are actually pool noodles. And we had the church help us to construct these. So they're pool noodles wrapped in colorful duct tape. And then they're wound up and secured with packaging tape, and they just look like little lollipops. And then I just wanted to formally make a special announcement thanking all of the volunteers who helped. This was a big undertaking because we had never done it before, and there was a lot of trial and error. And in particular, I would like to thank Troy because he was my partner in crime as we had to reroute, and we had to hired an electrician at one time. We had to change out some fuses. We had to set the timers. For those of you, because Troy would never say it, but I'm going to let you know, every night, every day, Troy checked on this display. If the church had forgotten to turn it on, he would turn it on. If it was late at night, if we had some type of a glitch, something wasn't working, Troy was right there making sure that the inflatables were operating, that the lights were working. So I couldn't be there all the time. And I just really want to say a special thanks to you, Troy, because it was very, very helpful in making this whole thing work. And then, of course, we definitely want to thank our partners at the church and, all of the volunteers. They were just so helpful in putting this together. And it was just a really nice opportunity. And then, of course, this past Saturday, we had, about 9-10 volunteers come?
Yeah.
Including Mark and Adorno, thank you, to come and Paula to take down the materials. And we also had a little fun while we were at it. And you can see little Mark,
what's that behind your head?
little Mark in the big chair. And oh, by the way, we're going to start rotating this chair now. So it has been at the church for some time. This is the big Adirondack chair, and it's just fun. It was over at the New Hudson Inn before we moved it over here. So I think, Paula, you're next. We'll get some folks together and transfer it and move it over in front of your business, and we'll just keep rotating it around. It's just a nice, fun photo opportunity, and it's an attention grabber. And I think, our businesses can benefit from any extra attention at this time. And then I also wanted to acknowledge the event that the Wholehearted Winery put on, which is the Photos with Santa. And they got real creative. And we also helped to participate in this. And that is part of our selfie station program, where when Santa wasn't in this igloo, it was on display, and it was an opportunity for folks to come and just, stand by it and get their picture taken. We're still trying to figure out how we can best use this. Troy had mentioned that this background can be changed. So it could be an opportunity as we move forward, depending on how quickly things get back to normal. Maybe we use this for Easter time, or
I think we're going to order an Easter background for Northville Township wants it for Easter.
Yeah, so that maybe we can take advantage of that too, pick a date where we do that. But I also want to acknowledge that Al Stewart, who let us borrow all of his Christmas cutouts for the Peanuts gang, and also the Whoville folks and the Grinch. He was very kind to let the DDA borrow that. Those have all been returned to him. And he also made this key to the township. And I don't know who this guy is with the
What a hat, man.
what a ham.
Oh, yeah, that's true too.
Our DDA chair was invited to present the key to Santa, and there were quite a few kids there. How it worked was they walked up. This particular lady here has a speaker, a headphone, and she would communicate. She would ask the kids what their names are, and then Santa would know their names, and then he had a microphone, and so he would say, "Well, hi there, Bobby. What do you want for Christmas?" And the kid's face would light up like, "How does he know my name?" And it was really fun. So it was a good event. We got a little bit of rain, but it cleared up. And I just want to acknowledge Dan and Brenda at Wholehearted Winery for their initiative. They took the initiative and moved forward and made plans for this. So it was a great attraction in our downtown. And then we also had our selfie station set up. I don't know who this guy is again. I think he's our model for the DDA. But we had selfie stations where people could bring their pets over to the Mitten Animal Hospital and get their pictures taken. And then just a few other opportunities where people could get their pictures taken next to the businesses. So, and then I also wanted to let you know that we've updated our Love for Lion campaign for the winter months. And so this task force that I'm a part of with the city and the chamber, we went ahead and I created this logo, and then with each season, I just make a few minor changes to it. So like for Christmas, we had a Santa hat on the N for lion, and now we've turned the O into a snowman. So it's just a fun way to just keep the campaign going throughout the year by just making a few minor changes to it, and get people still aware of participating in this campaign. There was also a holiday window contest that was hosted by the chamber, and our local cardio drumming fitness place won first place. So that was exciting. So they're going to receive 4 free t-shirts. And I put here that the t-shirt cost is coming from the general public sales of the t-shirts, but that's not true. I found out later that it's actually the chamber that's going to be covering the expense of those t-shirts as a giveaway. So, and then I also made changes to the order form for the Love Your Lion t-shirts, and reminding everyone that $10 for each t-shirt that is ordered goes back to, one of these days I'm going to get that right. There we go. Goes back into the campaign, and we'll be using those monies to cover some expenses related to the t-shirts, because we are sharing those funds with South Lyon and the chamber. So we just want to keep t-shirt sales associated with t-shirts. Another part of the campaign is we're introducing this Love for Lion bingo. It's for the month of January through February. And it's an opportunity to encourage the public to play this bingo game. There will be some prizes. Some of them will be donated items from our businesses, like baskets and whatnot, or t-shirts. And basically it's suggestions on where people can go to participate. So it would be show yourself buying a book at the local bookstore, or purchase a gift card. And part of it does explain it in the rules on how to participate. So they have to have a bingo. They have to submit photos to show that they were participating. And surprisingly, these bingo games have been really popular with DDAs throughout the country. It's just a fun way to get people engaged and getting them to go into the downtowns. And they don't have to go in large groups to do this. It's just on their regular visits. And so the entries are going to be due on the 15th of February. And then the announcements will be made on the prizes, whether it's a gift card or some type of basket. So we're meeting tomorrow morning to finalize this whole thing, but I just wanted you to be made aware of this campaign that we're working on to help promote.
Cool idea.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
And then for those of you who haven't been to the New Hudson Inn, I just wanted to show you an example of what they're doing to get people to come in and enjoy the outdoor dining opportunities. So they have these fire pits set up. They had a beautiful one that was created by an ironwork person who made it for Chris, and it's got footrests on it, and it says It's got like a cutout, New Hudson Inn, 1831, and it's just a really cool piece. But these have been a real hit throughout the month of December. And you can see Troy has lent them his box truck, and this is where their entertainers are. It provides them distance from others, and it's a warmer place for them to perform in. He's got lights set up. If you drive by, you can smell the campfires going. So just a creative way. And there's a lot of word on the street on this too. I talked to someone from Oakland County today about this grant program, and she said, hey, we heard about those bonfires over at the New Hudson Inn. And they have been reviewed by the fire marshal too. So anyways, I just wanted to give you, if you haven't had a chance, or, obviously during COVID, whatever people are comfortable with, but if you're comfortable and you haven't had a chance to go there, I'd encourage you to check it out.
That has now been deemed or called the Wonder Jump stage.
Has it? Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's where, and Troy, how many toys were collected for Toys for Tots in December?
Well, our goal was 5,000, but we collected 1,500.
1,500.
And after all was said and done, we would need 5 trucks if we would have collected our 5,000.
But you did fill that truck.
We filled the truck. Every time somebody brought toys up to the stage or to the tailgate, the singers would stop singing and they'd load the truck and they'd go back to singing again.
And someone drop off 5 bikes?
Yeah, yeah. One of the friends of their family of the inn dropped off 5 of these $300 bicycles, those mongooses. We collected 9 bikes. It took us 45 minutes to unload the truck when we took it over the Toys for Tots.
Yeah, that was a big accomplishment. So a lot of congratulations goes out to the New Hudson Inn and Wonder Jump for their participation in.
Well, and New Hudson Chiropractic Wellness Center. I got that perfect.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, and then of course, a huge thank you to the community. My goodness,
Yeah.
what a great turnout.
Yeah. Anytime it's great to involve the New Hudson Inn because they have like 6,000 followers. And Paula was just on Facebook announcing it constantly, and and Wholehearted Winery was jumped on board. So it's just a great program.
Yeah, great downtown initiative.
Felt very alive. It was like for the first time, New Hudson felt like, there was life.
Yeah, there was a buzz, right? There was energy.
Yeah. It was fun. It was exciting. And you're right, Paul. I mean, it's for the first time, it seemed like, we have an identity,
Mm-hmm.
I think people were really excited to help out too.
Yeah.
So I'm sharing this picture because I'm not this part right here, but this is kind of the concept that I had talked about with the draft horse, where they would have a few picnic tables and then use those heaters. So I just had a visual for you to see, and then just showing how some of these igloos have been set up. And then the last of the PPE kits, there's 20 remaining. Those are going to be distributed to our restaurants, and then we're done. So what I'm finding is I've been asking folks if they need more PPE. And what we're finding is a lot of these restaurants, all of our businesses, they've established relationships now with their suppliers for PPE. It's not as hard to secure that material anymore. So this is the second round. We initially received 130 boxes, and those were all distributed. And then they asked me if I wanted more, and I said, yeah, I'll take 50 more. And I got those distributed. And then we had these 20 remaining. So we have 32 restaurants. So I'm going to just put the word out. I did a couple of times. I asked for people if they just wanted them. They do have the gloves in them, which our restaurants find very useful. And then just having extra masks in case they need them. But I just wanted to give you guys an update on that because that's almost wound up. And then just wanted to let you know that I am aware of the 5 lights along Grand River that are out right now. And as you recall, our DDA replaced or upgraded all of the lights on New Hudson Drive, and it has been great. I mean, they have been working really well. They definitely do a great job. The LED is much brighter. It's easier to see at night. It's easier at the crosswalks and the roundabouts. And so John Dolan, who couldn't make the meeting tonight, but he'd like to investigate changing out upgrading the light heads that are on Line Center Drive East, which is over there behind Lowe's. And because we have a number of lights out here, we're going to do some investigating on what the cost would be to maybe upgrade the lighting units in these. So these are the black decorative lights with the acorn shaped globes. And those globes would be removed, and then the housing would be changed out to be LED. So it's just, we need to talk about it though, because it does really brighten the area, and we do have some residents living along here. So, and we have 27 lights, 28, 27 lights. So it might get really bright here. So I just wanted you to be aware that, I know that they're out and we're working on getting them working again temporarily, but we should talk about maybe upgrading these lights in the future. And I also mentioned earlier about the street lights in the downtown. This is a map from DTE that shows all of the township paid for street lights. We don't really have a lot of street lights because we just don't have them throughout the township. But in certain areas, like there's one that's here at Martindale and Pontiac Trail, and that light was requested by the people who live in this area. So the township went ahead and secured that. That's actually an LED light. But all of these lights in the DDA and along here are either the mercury vapor or these high density sodium lights. And the mercury vapor lights have been determined to be inadequate for municipal use. They just are not efficient. They don't give off the proper lighting or adequate lighting. So I wanted you to be aware that I'm broaching this topic with the township as well to find out how we can get these switched out. And maybe DTE has a program that encourages us to upgrade to LED. So I just wanted you to be aware that I'm going to be looking into this so that we can see if we can make it brighter and just improve the overall downtown lighting that we have, since we don't have a streetscape. And this is just showing you all the lights along Line Center Drive too that we would be looking into. So that's just a heads up in my report to show you where we're at. And that concludes my report.
Awesome. Thanks, Tina. A lot of work. Mark.
So I had a chance to meet with Troy last week just to kind of go through an outline of some of the hot points, some of the priorities that the Economic Restructuring Committee is going to take on. Nothing new to report tonight, but hopefully by next meeting, we'll have some additional progress on that.
And who's all on your committee?
You and me.
Okay.
Oh, you have committee members.
What's that?
You have
Greg Dobson, myself, Troy.
And Adorno.
Pardon me?
Adorno.
Adorno, that's correct.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
we'll have a meeting scheduled here in January to talk about some of the stuff that Troy and I discussed.
Awesome. Promotion committee meeting, promotion committee. The holiday display was really more of a marketing program than anything. And it was extremely successful. I think I looked at it more of a marketing program to get people involved. And Paula jumped on board. It was awesome. New Hudson Inn jumped on board. Winery jumped on board. Of course, we partnered hand in hand with the church, and Mitten participated. And like we talked about the last meeting, it was North versus South, but we promoted anybody who jumped on board. And then Dan Tresco lighted up their building. So it was awesome. So we had an opportunity to promote novellas and Jonas. And we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of views on Facebook. We had hundreds of shares, and I was told last week that the South Lyon community had a Facebook page of the top neighborhoods to visit for lighting, and the church was listed as one of the top 10 places, even though it wasn't a neighborhood. but the families voted that it was one of the top 10 best places to go visit in the community for an activity for Christmas lights. So that was pretty exciting. But like I said, it was a marketing campaign more than anything. And, you know, the businesses that participated benefited. So hopefully we'll be able to get more next year. The big goal this year for the promotion committee is we have a parade planned or being worked on. We have somebody who will organize it and make it happen. It's just a matter of getting the committee together to agree to it and time and when and where, that type of thing. So we've never had a parade in New Hudson that I know of, at least not in the last 30 some years. So it'll be kind of exciting. Just something different. And again, it'll be, you know, and then hopefully next year we'll be able to do the Saturday close down Grand River for a few hours or for the day and have the big event. But this year's holiday display lasted what, 5 weeks, Tina, 6 weeks?
Yeah.
So we got a lot of play off of it and a lot of compliments. And I was going there 10 o'clock every night to turn the lights off because we didn't have the timers we liked, but I went there at 10 or 9:50 one night to turn it off early, and there were people walking through it. So I was like, oh, so I had to wait for them to get done, but it was fun, you know. And like Paula said, I mean, man, it was, you know, it felt like New Hudson is really has an identity, and it was exciting and fun. And it was for the kids, for the community, because I think we really needed it. So that's it for the promotions committee. Design and appearance, Jason.
We haven't met yet.
Organization, we don't have a chair yet. And John's not here for an update. Tina, is there anything you want to share that John might have shared?
I would just say that the addition and the build out of the basement here for the sheriff's department is moving along. They're about, I'd say 95% done with putting the roof on the addition. So right now they're at the stage where they're connecting the roof to the existing roof. And so they're removing dormers and making that final connection. And they actually busted out a wall in the building department. So that was another start to creating the new layout and plan. So the lower level, I believe, is still on schedule. I think they're estimating to be in there end of March, sometime in April. So the sheriff's department will be done obviously sooner than the addition, but it's coming along. Gets a little loud in here sometimes, but it's worth it. And I think John told me they approved the water softening through Eagle. So it's a big deal. So now they're working out all the details on execution and how that'll all pan out and what type of equipment will need to be purchased and when. And so that's it.
Chris, all eyes are on you.
Let me just say that there have been a lot of loud phases to the construction, but the one where they're pounding above you on the roof is extra loud.
Yeah. Agreed.
So there were a few items last night in the DDA boundaries that went to Planning Commission and a few more going at the next meeting. Last night we took 2 industrial buildings in the Lyon Industrial Research Park, which is north of Grand River. And they were both approved, though one has to go get a variance. We have a requirement that all buildings that face 96 have to incorporate architectural features that they, on the rear facing the freeway, that they would on the front entrance. And because of the way the site is, they need to put their loading docks there. So they have to go get a variance, but we think that will happen. And both those buildings will be approved. And at the next Planning Commission meeting, there are 3 separate site plan applications for industrial buildings in the Quadrants Research Park. Those will be a mix of manufacturing and warehousing. As far as I know, the 2 buildings last night, one was doesn't have a tenant yet. They're just going to build it out as it is. But I believe that one, they do have a tenant, and they or a potential tenant that I think is in conversations with Tina about an abatement. So potentially that's something you guys will see shortly.
Which one is that, Chris?
That is that's on Lion Research Drive. I can shoot you a message. I just know Brian said that you guys have had conversations. So, but I don't know if there are any specific tenants for the Quadrants site plans that are coming up at the end of the month.
Are those the site plans for build outs of the spec buildings?
I believe so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
There were a couple of spec buildings constructed in the Quadrants Industrial Park. So.
Yep. And then outside of the DDA boundaries, but still very relevant to the township, Lion Cantina was supposed to come for a site plan review to be rebuilt, but they had some layout issues and were going to require several variances. And so they, went back to the drawing board and are submitting shortly. And we expect them to be up for approval at the first meeting in February. So hopefully they'll get approval to start sometime in the spring. I think those are all
Nice.
the development updates I have. I just wanted to add one little piece because I didn't want to interrupt Tina. She's doing a great job about the county aid. But for those of you in the new Hudson, the owned businesses in the new Hudson zoning district, those temporary structures are permitted in our zoning ordinance. They don't have to come down when COVID is done. Accessory buildings are permitted in the district. And so those igloos and greenhouses that you guys are helping with, if those are needed in future winters, they are definitely can be permitted. In fact, those that are 200 square feet or less might not even require a building permit. And so it could be potentially easy. They meet the setback requirements going forward. I know that may not affect any of your businesses necessarily, but it may be beneficial to others near you or whatever. So just wanted to make sure that we knew that we could do those.
I had a quick question,
Sure.
Chris. For the Quadrants, you had mentioned 3 site plans. Is that the Kawasaki one as well?
Oh, I'm sorry. I completely forgot Kawasaki. That is in Quadrants too. They are adding a 50,000 square foot warehouse addition, which was also approved last night. So thank you for bringing that up. I completely slipped my mind, but
Yeah, that's really exciting. Tech did an addition a couple of years ago, right next door. So not only are we seeing additional businesses coming into the township, but we're seeing our existing businesses continue to grow and thrive as well. And then for those of you who might not have heard, Pratt & Miller, which is an engineering company here, they occupy 4 buildings in our DDA, industrial DDA. They were just acquired by another company. I think it's Eshon. And so I'll be meeting with them and my counterparts with the county and the state. We're going to do a retention call just to kind of see where they stand with that acquisition and what their plans are to move forward. Because they have multiple buildings on Trident, which is just to the east of Old Plank. And they were going to take over the BVA oil building. And they were thinking of constructing a new building along Grand River or along the freeway as well. So just wanted to get a better feel for what their plans are as they move forward. That is their world headquarters here in New Hudson. So it's very exciting.
And then I just had one last thing. I know you guys are tired and probably want to get off. I did just get an application for the signs at Jiffy Lube, and they indicated that means that they're pretty close. So hopefully they should be up and going pretty soon. And that'll wrap it up for me.
Same with that professional building. We've got
Mhm.
users in there now, so
Yeah.
we'll have to be scheduling some ribbon cutting events.
Is Culver still coming in?
Yep, they were approved in December, and we have a zoning board of appeals meeting for a variance, for a parking variance at the end of this month. And I promise that not every site plan requires variances. We've had just a streak of them recently.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for the report.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Do we have a motion for adjournment or should we keep going?
Prior to the motion for adjournment, is it worth considering moving the McKenna report, Chris's report to the front of the meeting on the agenda, maybe in the future? Just, respectful of Chris's time, he sits through our entire meeting to give us the update at the very end. So
We could. The only reason why I think it's a good idea, and I'm not saying you have to be last, Chris, because we can move you up to the top of the reports, but I think it's good for our planner to hear what we're trying to achieve here in the DDA, because whenever we come up with some concepts or ideas, or just like what he contributed now based off the report that I gave, I think it's good to have him hear your comments and your input. That's just my thought on it, but.
And just to add, I'm happy to talk whenever. I'm happy to be with you for your meetings. You guys are, I do a ton of these, and you guys are very, very quick compared to a lot of boards. So don't feel bad on my behalf. Also, me and Brian work on zoning ordinance updates all the time. And so if you guys have input or things that you notice that you think could be fixed or streamlined, please always feel free to let us know, because we want to make sure we're getting it right.
I definitely appreciate the information you give us. Okay.
with that, I would make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Who was second?
Jason.
Okay, Mark,
Yes.
Troy,
No. Yes.
I knew that. Carissa. Carissa,
You're muted.
Just
Not
now.
in your head, yes.
Working on it.
okay, Jason,
Yes.
Paula,
Yes.
Adorno.
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Have a good
you
evening.
so much.
You look like you're in,
you,
like,
everyone.
ready in the dark there.
I know.
I turned my office light off.
Good night.
Good night.
I
Good
got it.
Everyone, thank you.
Good night, John Boy.